After the divorce, my daughter blocked me without hearing my side of the story. Now, after 8 long years, she has unexpectedly reached out to me, not out of a desire to reconnect, but rather to claim what she perceives as her entitlement, my inheritance. I stand here, 54 years old, reflecting on the journey of my life, filled with twists, turns, and unforeseen heartbreak. The divorce, a monumental event in my life, brought with it a storm of emotions and shattered expectations. At 46, I found myself at a crossroads, separated from my wife, who was 48 at the time. Our daughter, just 28, was caught in the middle, forced to choose sides in a battle she never asked to be a part of. Her decision to side with her mother without so much as a glance in my direction left me reeling, grappling with feelings of abandonment and betrayal. In the aftermath, I reached out to my daughter countless times, yearning for the chance to mend our fractured relationship. Each attempt was met with silence, her resolve to shut me out unyielding. It was a bitter pill to swallow, knowing that my own flesh and blood had chosen to sever ties with me based on one-sided narratives and skewed perceptions. As the years passed, I poured my heart and soul into caring for my ailing mother, who battled Alzheimer's with grace and dignity. She was my rock, my source of solace amidst the chaos of my fractured family. When she passed away recently, I felt a profound sense of loss, compounded by the absence of the daughter I had longed to reconcile with. Then, out of the blue, a glimmer of hope appeared on the horizon. A call from an unfamiliar number, a voice from the past seeking to bridge the chasm that had separated us for so long. My daughter's sudden reappearance in my life stirred a maelstrom of emotions within me, hope, apprehension, and a flicker of longing for the family ties that had been severed. Our reunion, though awkward at first, soon blossomed into heartfelt conversation as we tentatively navigated the delicate terrain of our strained relationship. The wounds of the past were laid bare, raw and unhealed, as we grappled with the painful memories that had driven us apart. Yet, amidst the pain, there was a glimmer of understanding, a shared recognition of the mistakes that had led us to this juncture. But then, like a dagger to the heart, came the revelation of her true intentions. Behind the facade of reconciliation lurked the specter of greed, as she brazenly broached the subject of inheritance, laying claim to what she believed was rightfully hers. In that moment, the fragile bond we had begun to rebuild shattered, as I recoiled from the realization that her motives were driven not by a desire for reconciliation, but by avarice. The irony of her request was not lost on me, that she, who had chosen to sever ties with me, now sought to reap the rewards of a relationship she had abandoned. The inheritance, a symbol of my mother's love and legacy, had become a pawn in her game of manipulation and self-interest. As I grappled with the betrayal of my daughter's actions, I found myself torn between my desire for justice and my longing for reconciliation. Could I, in good conscience, deny her a share of the inheritance, knowing that it would only serve to perpetuate the cycle of greed and mistrust that had torn our family apart? In the end, it was a decision born not out of spite or resentment, but out of a desire to break free from the chains of the past and forge a new path forward. I chose to stand firm in my convictions, refusing to be swayed by her empty promises of reconciliation in exchange for material gain. And so, as she left my home that day, her words ringing hollow in my ears, I knew that I had made the right choice, for myself, for my mother, and for the legacy that she had entrusted to me. The road ahead may be fraught with uncertainty, but I walk it with my head held high, secure in the knowledge that I have chosen integrity over expediency, and truth over falsehood. After the divorce, my daughter blocked me without hearing my side of the story. Now, after 8 years, she has contacted me to claim my inheritance. I am 54 years old and divorced my wife, who was 48 at the time. 8 years ago, my 28-year-old daughter cut all contact with me and chose her mother's side without asking how I felt. Although my divorce was nearly a decade ago, it took me a long time to accept how things turned out and find peace in my life. This was partly because my ex-wife tried to completely destroy my reputation, but mostly because I truly loved my daughter, and being completely excluded from her life was harder than anything else. Since she was an adult at the time and there was no way to be in her life unless she wanted it, she seemed sure of her decision to choose her mother over me. I have no family of my own except for my mother, who had Alzheimer's, so this whole process was undoubtedly one of the worst things that has happened to me. I tried to contact my daughter several times after the divorce, but she was determined to side with her mother and didn't even attempt to listen to my version of the story. At one point, my ex contacted me and sued me for harassment if I didn't leave my daughter alone. That was a clear sign, and I stopped contacting her. I have spent the last 8 years taking care of my mother and focusing on my career. I've had some casual relationships here and there, but I feel like I can't fully trust another person after my divorce. Anyway, that's been my life for almost a decade. I'm sorry if I sound like a downer. The reason I'm writing this post is because my daughter recently reached out to me after all this time. I was excited and thought she had finally reconsidered and understood that the divorce wasn't solely my fault. It was comforting, especially because my mother passed away recently, and I've been dealing with that grief on my own, needing some comfort and family. A few months after the death of my mother, I received a call from an unrecognized number. It was my daughter. I didn't know she was still following me online, and I thought it was kind of her. I thanked her for the call and expressed how much I missed her. We talked a bit, and she suggested meeting in person instead of over the phone. I was delighted and immediately agreed. We agreed to meet at my house over the weekend. I was really excited to reunite with her after all these years. When I opened the door, I was nervous and excited. Honestly, I didn't even recognize her at all because it had been almost a decade since I last saw her, and she was just a girl back then. We started talking, and although it was a bit awkward at first, I think we both opened up after a while. She told me about her life and work, and I told her about mine. After dinner, we finally addressed the elephant in the room. I asked her why she never bothered to listen to my side of the story during the divorce and chose her mom by default. I admitted that her mother was more present as a mother because she was a stay-at-home mom while I worked in construction and had long workdays. My daughter then said that she regretted how things turned out and that she was too young to think things through at the time and was manipulated by how her mom distorted things. Basically, my ex-wife painted me as the ultimate villain who only cared about himself, and since she never heard my side of the story, she never questioned what her mom said. We talked a bit more about this, and things were going well until she finally revealed why she was there. We had been talking for hours by that point when I asked her why she had contacted me after all these years. She seemed a bit uncomfortable, and I told her she could be honest with me. That's when she said that she had actually been following me on Facebook, and when she found out that her grandmother had passed away, she thought the lawyers would contact her about her inheritance. When that didn't happen, she decided to reach out to me personally. She said she wanted to give me time and space to grieve, but she recently got engaged and could use some money to help with wedding expenses. It felt like a punch in the stomach. Honestly, I thought that after all these years, my prayers had been answered, and I could have a family again. But it turns out she never cared about me in the first place, and all this was just a way to get her inheritance. The funniest part is that it's not even legally her inheritance, it's all mine. And if she weren't such a terrible daughter to me, I would definitely end up giving her most if not all of it. I don't care about the money, it has never mattered to me. Honestly, I live in my own house, I don't have expensive hobbies, and most of the time, I buy my clothes at Target. Even if the inheritance weren't in question, I wouldn't mind helping with my daughter's wedding if she had approached me kindly instead of trying to take advantage of me and only caring about the inheritance. All this was going through my head at the same time, but somehow, I kept my composure and asked her if that was all she wanted. She got very defensive and said that the inheritance was secondary, that her real goal was to reconnect with me. She claimed that she would never forgive herself for not reaching out while her grandmother was alive. She said she had wanted to reach out for years but never had the courage to do it because she thought I would never forgive her for kicking me out without explanation, and she was also manipulated by her mother. However, I could see a look of panic on her face, and I wondered if she was only looking out for her own financial gain. I asked her how she knew about the inheritance, and she said that a few years before the divorce, while visiting my late mother, she told her that she wanted her to inherit everything left by my deceased father years ago since she was the only granddaughter in the family. I have no siblings,